everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mercedes, and today I want to share with you 5 of my favorite reads from 2024 and 5 of my least favorite reads of 2024. Before we get into the video, it has been a hot minute since I have uploaded anything here on my YouTube channel, and I just want to let you know, it's not because I haven't been trying for some reason, and I need to figure out why this keeps happening. It is totally user error 100%. The past 2 or 3 YouTube videos I've tried to film have all been in slow motion. In slow motion with no audio. I'm even paranoid right now that it's filming in slow motion, but I did like a test before and I didn't click anything. I didn't touch nothing. So if it's filming in slow motion, this is my sign that I should stop uploading anything on YouTube. Let's have a little moment for a little life update. I don't know if you noticed anything about me, but I did cut my hair. I have been wanting to cut my hair for a little over a month, which is the longest time I've been with that want to cut my hair. Usually if I have that feeling to cut my hair, the next day it's cut. I did cut it myself. Fun fact, I used to be a cosmetologist. I went to the Paul Mitchell School of Charleston. I hated being a cosmetologist. Matter of fact, I hated being a cosmetologist so much, as soon as I graduated from cosmetology school, I never officially got a job as a hairstylist, and I only really cut friends and family hair, and I went right back to school to be a massage therapist. Let's go ahead and get into the video. So I have all of the books sitting right in front of me. You have no idea what they are. I'm going to go back and forth between one of my favorites and one of my least favorites, and now this is the part in the video where I remind you that reading is subjective, and just because there's some books that I loved, you don't have to love them, and just because there's some books that weren't my favorite doesn't mean that you can't love them. Even on the list of my least favorite things, there are people out there who love this book, and I love that for you. Some of the books that were my least favorite made me sad, and I didn't want to not like them. I would love to hear your thoughts, but we're not going to argue about it. Now that that's said, let's go ahead and get into the first book. I'll start with a book that I loved this year, and that is The Confidence of Wildflowers by Michaela Smeltzer. This is not the first time I have talked about this book. I loved it. This is the first book in a duology. The second book is... Is there a video that goes by without a dog disturbance? I think I'm getting an Amazon delivery though. Just as I suspected, it is a book. Let's have a surprise impromptu book mail. I bought this myself. This is Jessie Hall's newest release, Green Light. Yes, I've read it. Yes, it was phenomenal. I loved it. Just kisses. But anyway, as I was saying, this is part of a duology. The second book is The Resurrection of Wildflowers, and there's also a novella that follows after it. But let's talk about The Confidence of Wildflowers. This book definitely does hit a sweet spot for me. I cried when I read it. It really resonated with me as a person. And one thing that I love about Michaela Smeltzer's writing, now this is the first book that I've read by her, and I've only read the duology. I do have other books of hers on my bookshelf that I hope to get around to soon. Her writing style doesn't have a lot of fluff to it, and I don't say that in a bad way. It's very much so just you are getting the plot and you're getting all of these key moments in the character's life that builds up to something more, and sometimes that something more isn't ideal. Sometimes things happen in life that we could have never seen coming, and we could have never guessed that that would happen to us. And reading that in a book where these characters face this reality that is a nightmare for literally everyone, and how it happened is just so real, and the way that they communicate with each other and the character development between each of the characters was just phenomenal. It's a trigger warning at the beginning of the book. It does say there are mentions of sexual abuse, cancer, and death, but I want to be a little bit more specific with the death. It is a child death, which is the part that got me, is the part that left me in a sobbing mess. And then this is one of those books that I think really hits home on how tragic and sudden that can happen in someone's life. Moving on to one of my least favorite reads this year, The Housemaid is Watching by Freida McFadden. Now, this book really defined my relationship with Freida McFadden. This is the third book in the Housemaid series. The first book is The Housemaid, the second book is The Housemaid's Secret, and the third book is The Housemaid is Watching. In my very humble opinion, this book shouldn't exist. This book feels like a money grab. This book didn't continue anything into the plotline of The Housemaids, and it made me really reconsider my relationship with Freida McFadden in the way that she writes her books. Her books feel like there is a very checkpoint list that she goes through. They're very cookie cutter. If you've never read Freida McFadden before, the way her twist happens so suddenly and so drastically that if it's your first thriller book or it's your first Freida book, it'll kind of give you whiplash, and that feeling of whiplash is fun. It's exciting. Boost of adrenaline, and you love that feeling. And then you read more Freida McFadden books and you slowly realize that it's the same thing, copy and paste, and it just becomes less enjoyable. And then you get to a book like The Housemaid is Watching, where it is literally just a money grab, because The Housemaid is, I believe, her best-selling book. Moving back to one of my favorite reads this year is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bottom Young. I love this book so much. When I look for a rom-com, I'm looking for something like this. Now, there is a pregnancy trope in this book, and you know, I don't have beef with the pregnancy trope or anything, but most of the time it's not my favorite trope. Like, if I had to list my favorite tropes, a pregnancy trope would not be there. And in order to tell you why I think the pregnancy trope in this book was done so well, I have to tell you that this plot revolves around a one-night stand and an accidental pregnancy. While there is a pregnancy within this book, it doesn't revolve solely. Why did I just forget how to speak English? I was trying to say that it doesn't solely revolve around the pregnancy. I feel like most of the time, whenever a character gets pregnant in a book, that the plot just starts to revolve around the pregnancy and like the woman being like in her fragile state, and I don't love that depiction of pregnancy, and that's not what this book is. And there's so much more going on. The character development of the main female character is perhaps my favorite character development of a main female character ever. And Beau, the main male character, he is that book boyfriend.
He is that man.
And the banter between the friends and the community aspect of this book, just everything about this book, I love. Switching back over to one of my least favorite reads this year, it makes me sad that this book is on my least favorite reads this year, because I wanted to love it and I was so excited to read it, and it's A Not So Meant to Be by Megan Quinn. Now, if you follow me over on TikTok, you know that I absolutely raved about the first book in this series, A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. This was my first ever Megan Quinn book, and I was obsessed. This is a 5-star read for me. Matter of fact, now that I'm holding it in my hands, I don't know why it's not in my most favorite reads this year. This book is phenomenal and made me obsessed with Megan Quinn, and I immediately bought every book in the Kane Brothers series. I have since completed the series. I DNF'd this one. This one was really hard to get through, and I tried to push myself to get through it. I got to page 125, I believe, and I simply couldn't do it anymore, because at page 125, the only thing that has happened is we have discovered that the main female character hates the main male character. Kelsey hates JP. And that's all we learn. That's all we know. Kelsey is nothing but a brutal, raging bitch to JP the first 125 pages, and we don't know why. I think I got to the point of the book where JP was starting to accept that, you know, maybe Kelsey wasn't into him because he was low-key hoping that she would come around, and that maybe she was playing like this hard to get type woman, and he was starting to accept that maybe she didn't like him. And then she had the audacity to be like, is something wrong? Like, you're treating me different. Like, did I do something?
Did you do something?
Like, maybe it was every time you've ever seen him, you told him that you literally hated his existence. Also, the little glimpses we got into Lottie and Huxley which is the characters from the first book, kind of made me cringe. I didn't love it, and that added to the rage that I was starting to feel when I read this book. So I ultimately, sadly, DNF'd it. You guessed it, we're switching back to one of my favorite reads this year so far, and that is Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. This is the second book in the Ruinous Love trilogy. The first book is Butcher and Blackbird. The third book has not been released yet. I listened to this on audio. It was narrated by Eric Nolan and Samantha Brittmore, and it is one of my favorite audios that exist to date. I liked Butcher and Blackbird, but I loved this even more. I just think that this book had a little bit more plot to it than Butcher and Blackbird. Lark and Lachlan just make so much sense together, and Auntie Ethel was one of my favorite characters. Every time she was in a scene, I was laughing the whole time. And everything about Lark, she's a main female character, she's independent, she's badass, she don't need no man. And Lachlan is that perfect level of broodiness, but under the surface he's low-key a teddy bear and he just wants someone to love, but he'll never admit that. And I just loved everything about this book so much. And there is a trigger warning at the beginning of it, so keep that in mind. Brynne Weaver has quite an extensive trigger warning on both of her books. Also pretty funny is that the trigger warning in this book does have a trigger warning for epoxy. I have a new thoughts about crafting with epoxy resin, and what's interesting is when I was listening to this book, I was working with epoxy resin. I make epoxy tumblers, these bookish tumblers that have like the pages underneath them, and I was literally, when they got to the epoxy scene, I was putting epoxy on cups, and I think that was super funny and, you know, interactive experience for me as the reader. I'm gonna show you the next book, and I want you to guess if it's one of my most favorites or if it's on my least favorite list, okay? Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Can you guess? Here, I'll show you the side. Can you guess? If you guessed my least favorite, you're correct. And if the giveaway was that I started tabbing this book and then I ended because I ultimately DNF'd it, okay. All right, listen. I read this book because it did have a lot of momentum on Book Talk, and when Book Talk goes feral, I have to read the book. It's like mandatory, it's embedded in my DNA. If a book goes viral on Book Talk, me must read. So that's why I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is the second Ali Hazelwood book I have ever read. I didn't love the first book I read by her, which was Love Hypothesis. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. I think I gave it like 3 stars. And then I read this book and I couldn't do it. There's just, I think there's a certain level of quirkiness to Ali Hazelwood's writing that maybe I just don't love. And there's many times, if I go through the part that I did read and like go through and tab and underline, there's lots of parts where I underline and I'm like, huh? Or I'm underlining it, I'm like, WTF. Why? WTF. 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 Just showing more evidence. I DNF'd it at page 40. So I really genuinely couldn't make it through the first 40 pages. Now, to be fair, the first 40 pages does have like this moment in it where it's like a world building word dump is what it felt like. And that there was no way to convey to the reader what was going on unless you were having like this big conversation between 2 characters. And I don't love that when that happens in a book. And also, like I said earlier, I think this book just has a certain level of quirky corniness to the writing that I don't love. Oh, I love this next book so much, and that's Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I am a sucker for a second chance romance, and I loved the setup for this book, and it flips back and forth between the past and the present. So the past is whenever they met when they were younger and their relationship is like building, and the present time is them coming together again or accidentally seeing each other, accidentally bumping into each other. Both of them already have like this established life they're living, but then worlds collide again. It goes back and forth between the plot line of their current situation and the past, and you're trying to piece together what happened in the past and why they're no longer together, because they seem like they are perfect for each other, and it's so good. The ending is so impactful, and I just love everything about this book. Beach Read by Emily Henry is a popular book in the book talk community, and I am sad to say that I actually really didn't enjoy this book that much. What really ruined this book for me was the main female character and how incredibly insufferable she was and how self-centered and selfish she could be. And I hate to say this, but this relationship, the couple in this book, seems like in 5 years that they will be divorced. And that's funny to say because of the whole plot line of the book. I realize, okay, you know, we hope not, but like, did they actually really get along? Or are they together because it's convenient? That's kind of what it felt like. Now, when I tell you I ate this next book up, I mean that. Of Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. When I think romantasy, this is what I want. Now, this actually isn't quite a 5-star read for me, and that's just because I feel petty, you know? It's like a 4.5 star read for me. It's so close to being a 5-star read. The only thing holding it back is towards the end, the main female character, she was kind of going through it, and I didn't love the way that she was going through it. She was kind of like, she needed someone to punch her right in her face. Like, she needed someone to humble her and humble her. She was, yep. She was. Second book comes out next year. I know the cover has just been revealed, but because I have 2 brain cells and not a lot of storage left up here, I forget the name of the second book. I think it's like a cursed blood, a blood curse, cursed of. So excited for it. This next book I think is actually going to be kind of shocking because I haven't really talked about it too much. It was a book that was released way back at the beginning of this year in January. It's the 3rd book in a series. Any guesses? Any guesses? If you guessed the 3rd Crescent City book, A House of Flame and Shadow, you would be correct. This is on the list of my least favorite reads for 2024. Now, if I really think about it, I didn't enjoy this book at all. And the more I think about it, Crescent City is my least favorite series written by SJM. I think about Throne of Glass daily. I think about A Court of Thorn and Roses daily. I never think about Crescent City. My favorite book in the series was the first book. The first book is absolutely phenomenal. The next 2 books, questionable. The next 2 books, you don't have to read them. Just read the first book and you'll be good, and maybe like get a little synopsis of the next 2 books. This is also the end of the video, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on any of these books. Even if they were my least favorite and they're your favorite, I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinions, and also maybe tell me your top favorite books and your least favorite books for this year. I have stacks of books literally everywhere in my house, and there's like no space left on my bookshelves, so I think I'm going to have to get another bookshelf soon. Would you guys want to see like a bookshelf tour / bookshelf reorganization type video? Because I feel like one is in my near future, and I just want to know if you guys would like want to see that or not, you know? That's all I have for you today, girl. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're eating your vegetables, going on your walk, and I am the pot calling the kettle black because I'm not doing that. I need to though. So maybe this is like a reminder within myself. Okay, bye. Love you.